We bring in David Samson every Thursday, and we cover a lot of terrain with him. I suggest you listen to Nothing Personal, his podcast. There is a ton of great sports business information there, but he wanders far afield, far away from the business stuff. We begin with the gigantic story involving Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones the other day, because he does a weekly radio hit, he began
Greg Cody moment,
honoring Greg Cody by just losing his ability to speak because the coughs got a hold of him.
Courtesy 105.3 The Fan.
We've got help on the way here. Well, Washington's got a good chance to be joining us here real soon. Excuse me.
You all right?
Yep. Get me some oxygen. Better still, how about a big shot of Jack? We'll be ready to go this morning.
That's not a bad call.
Samson, your thoughts on...
I love how he felt vulnerable there, and he's like, where do I go? Give me a shot. Let me be a man.
Yes, I've got to be a man. I've been coughing for 17 seconds. Put it on the poll, please, Chris Cody. Does a cough always get worse when you're trying to suppress it? Because that was Greg Cody reminiscent. We will get to the other Jerry Jones.
I forgot all about him being on the front lines of racism.
A cough to distract you. Did you talk on Nothing Personal, David, about the Washington Post elaborate expose that had a lot of different things in it, but what everyone's taking from it is a photo from 65 years ago of Jerry Jones at the height of racial tensions, where some black kids were being kept out of school through segregation?
Yeah, we led with that yesterday because one of the things that I was very interested in is his response. And I'm not buying it. His response was all about he was just curious. And so I like to think about what it would be like during those times or what it's like during these times. How clueless can you be when you are just passing by and you stop, when you see 4 white people stopping 4 black people and they're face to face and you're just curious because you don't know what it is. And his claim was he had no idea. It's a totally different subject, whether or not we should condemn him for something he did when he was a child. That's a great conversation to have, is what is the runway for forgiveness or for change? And when do we punish people or not for what they've done as a child? But his answer, it's as though he has no advisors. And that part is very curious to me.
Well, he said his answer was that he was just curious. And if you're interested at all in looking at it from his perspective, I'm guessing a whole lot of 15-year-olds would have gathered around whatever the commotion is. But he's had 65 years to think about how he's going to answer the question. And he's shown you what he is with his hiring practices. Whether you believe he's racist or not, his hiring practices are right there for you to see. He doesn't very often trust people who are not white.
And in his interview, he actually gave voice to having a more inclusive hiring process because he said he learned a lot from his black director of player personnel. If that were the case, and if you started integrating minority candidates into your corporate structure, maybe you wouldn't have been so illuminated as you were in recent years so recently. Maybe it would have happened several years ago. So in his answer, he actually gave you a pretty solid argument for diversifying.
I think this ends when this group of owners passes away and passes their teams on to the next generation, whether it's their children or whether they just sell a team outright, because there should be no surprise to you that octogenarian white people are racist. Right? That's the way it was back then. It was sort of much more common and accepted almost because of how ridiculous our world was so many years ago. So it's not a coincidence.
And still is.
Well, listen, you have to acknowledge that there's been a level of recognition and conversation that didn't exist all those years ago. And that's the sort of improvement. And the hope is, like what LeBron said last night was very interesting to me when he said, hey, how come you didn't ask me about Jerry Jones, but you asked me about Kyrie Irving?
For the record, I should tell people, at the end of his press conference, when he was done last night after the Lakers won, he kept the press around and asked the press, why did you not ask me about Jerry Jones when you asked me so much about Kyrie Irving. And, Stephen A. Smith and others are getting criticized for breaking ranks. This is a conversation that's taking place in the black community. That particular proportional outrage where people want to see they want the consistency of moral outrage. If you're going to go after Kyrie Irving that way, why don't you go after Jerry Jones that way? And we can point out all the differences, David, between Kyrie Irving and Jerry Jones, but I understand how LeBron arrives at that, and I understand how his community arrives at that.
So I don't, because I can't be in those shoes. I understand what he's saying, and I happen to agree with it, but I certainly don't understand the process where you arrive at that. But if you're LeBron James, I don't want you to wait. So to me, the progress is when you don't need to wait for the media, you can look past that and say, all right, to get growth, to try to eliminate or keep improving the elimination of racism, and all of the power and privilege of old white people, why not make a direct statement about it? He's got a platform to do that, and he could use the platform however he so chooses. And when the media doesn't ask him about Jerry Jones, is he then saying the media doesn't care what he has to say? Or was his point that you don't view what Jerry Jones did in the same way that you view what Kyrie did? Those are two very different questions, and that's what I want to hear from LeBron.
Well, he's just saying why not cover it with the same zeal is what he's asking for.
There were 1 million articles about what Jerry Jones did.
Oh, but
if you Google search it, there's 4 million hits on it. They say, right? I mean, so.
But wait a minute, David.
Wait,
you can't argue that it's being covered the same way that Kyrie Irving is covered. You can't make that argument. That there are many articles is one thing, that it's dominating the sports television landscape as conversation is a different thing. That's not how the Jerry Jones thing is playing out. It's such a complicated issue with what the Washington Post did was thorough, and it's not easy for people to put it on television and talk about it for hours at a time as a discussion point.
Do you remember back in the All-Star game with a guy named Josh Hader? Do you know who Josh Hader is, Dan?
You and I got into an argument about Josh Hader. I said that the Milwaukee Brewers would not be able to get that kind of dominance again once they traded him. Then he went to San Diego and he gave up 1,000 runs in a third of an inning.
But I'm talking about well before that. Josh Hader had some issues on his Twitter account as a kid. Sort of like Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart was not allowed to host the Oscars. This is the outrage that I have. Kevin Hart is not allowed to host the Oscars and has to pass on it because of things and jokes and things that he did when he was younger.
Wait a minute. Though Kevin Hart wasn't a kid, David. Kevin Hart wasn't a teenager when he made those jokes.
I don't view a difference between a 19-year-old and a 32-year-old. I'm not willing to give Josh Hader the benefit of the doubt that he was a kid.
There.
I'm not willing to give Jerry Jones the benefit of the doubt that he was curious and didn't know what it was because he was 14. It's context. Of course he knew what it was.
You don't see the difference between going through Josh Hader's tweets as a teenager and Kevin Hart being getting close to the Oscars and not apologizing again for tweets that were years earlier, not as a teenager when he was a famous entertainer?
No, I do not. As I'm evaluating what impact it has today, the fact that Kevin Hart gets taken away from the Oscars, but Josh Hader pitches in the All-Star game and everyone forgets about it as though it didn't happen, is that what's happening with Jerry Jones? Is it the same thing because he was 14, so people were going to move past it? Is that LeBron's point?
I do believe plenty of people are forgiving or explaining away Jerry Jones with the idea of, I too have done dumb shit when I'm 15.
Okay, so dumb shit is when you get stoned and get behind the wheel and think you're going to be fine, or that you have two drinks or get behind the wheel, or that you do a slump buster, right? Dumb shit is not being racist. Or homophobic. That's not dumb shit.
Wait a minute, though. We're talking about Jerry Jones being in a photograph that can be classified as dumb shit when someone says that they are curious about gathering as a commotion as a teenager, and they're photographed at the center of, racial tensions in this country.
But it wasn't like a kerfuffle. It was an active way to stop segregation. and integration and school integration. I'm going back to those times, and listen, I buried the lead a little bit. I spoke to some people who were alive then, right? I never had that in growing up, how I grew up. I never had that issue, right? There were black kids and brown kids and white kids in my school, et cetera. So I didn't experience it, but the people who were alive who experienced it then, it's not as though it was a secret or a surprise. There was active racism going on in those parts of the country, of our country, active. So when you were 15 years old, it was a part of your existence the same way the Cuban Missile Crisis was a part of the existence of people who were growing up in a certain age in the early 60s, or of Vietnam if you're growing up in the 70s. You can't pretend that you don't know about a Vietnam War demonstration on your campus and say, oh, I was just curious what that was. You know exactly what that was.
Maybe the reason there isn't as much conversation about it is because what is going to happen? Like nothing. He's a billionaire. He's not going to sell his team. There's not a ton of recourse for it. He sat down with the reporters and explained it. And there's a big difference between, all right, Kevin Hart don't host the Academy Awards and Jerry Jones not having to answer to anybody because he's Jerry Jones.
So was that LeBron's point that Jerry Jones doesn't have to answer to anything because of his power, privilege, and color?
No, he was saying that the media needs to keep applying pressure so that there can be those kinds of consequences. There can only be... Kyrie Irving, you'll remember, didn't get the consequences until the outrage started to bubble. It didn't happen immediately. You need the outrage, you need the media pressure when something has not happened in order to inflame this kind of stuff. And these kinds of flames don't rise up to reach someone like Jerry Jones. It's why he's so comfortable answering this question. He knows good and well nothing can happen to him.
And I feel confident in saying he navigated this particular controversy much better than Kyrie did, and Kyrie was afforded several opportunities to clarify and dug a deeper grave. I understand what we're trying to do with this conversation, but we're all ill-equipped to have it. And I paid attention to some of the feedback that I got in trying to engage because I know you find it fascinating, but I'm not black. I'm not suited to do comparison shopping on something that happened in the 1960s. I was in trying to search for answers, I was just magnifying my being ill-equipped to discuss. I really feel like we should invite someone who is capable of having such discussions, and I encourage our audience because in receiving some criticism, I was encouraged to find out that Bomani's podcast covered this, and I'd say go there because none of us are card-carrying members to be able to have this discussion.
I think we can have the conversation, though, about power and privilege. And I think the question is why we allow people to become so unanswerable to consequences in our society. Private citizens who have so much power and wealth that things that they might have done that are abhorrent decades ago don't matter because no one can hold them accountable. Why do we let people like that be created? Why do we have people that don't have to follow the same rules as everyone else?
I think that obviously by being white, Jerry Jones is afforded more privilege. But I also see that Kanye and Kyrie were privileged enough to have several opportunities and kept digging deeper and deeper with an adoring public hoping to apologize. And you'll see if Kanye ever digs himself out of this, people will be there to pick him up and welcome him back into the mainstream. I just would like
If Jerry Jones were doing this today, do you not think that it would be different?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
So then what we're talking about is whether or not things when you're young matter.
Right.
Right.
But to me, we're
not talking about black versus white. We're talking about, in addition, we're talking about whether or not you can be forgiven for stupid things, as Dan called them.
Right, but therein lies why I think is a rational answer as to why it's not being covered the same way, but also I'm exposing myself as being completely ill-equipped to have that conversation. Why shouldn't I have the same sort of anger towards Jerry Jones? And I'm put in a position where I'm trying to rationalize what I think are very simple rationalizations, but if I were listening to that and I were black, I'd be insulted by my very rationalization.
You would see a vastly different coverage of all of this if the media and everyone in power were black. The entire coverage of this would feel vastly different. to you. The Washington Post, I thought, did it fair and balanced, that they aspired to do it most thoroughly. But, of course, the power structure is contaminated. That's everything that's happening in this country right now between the divisions, that you have the supremacy of white people overlording a bunch of oppressed people who feel like this country, if it hasn't arrived at a civil war, is at a sort of fragmented genocide where individual soldiers who are lonely and crazy are going into gay nightclubs, are going into shopping centers and just taking out others, where you understand how it is that we've arrived at 2022 by looking at that photograph and where it is that we were in 1957. When you talk about the improvements in this country, David, and you say, well, it's an important conversation, I'm glad we're having it. It's been that for 60 years. Yeah, we're better than we were, but there's still Nazis wandering around in public and more overtly than they have in the last many years.
But the difference is that the Nazis who are walking around currently are unable to gather enough numbers behind them to effectuate a Holocaust-type situation. And so what we're talking about is incremental improvement, which is how you judge everything. You judge it over, you're talking about 60 years. 200 years from now, a 60-year period becomes a lot smaller than what a 60-year period is now, much like we look back at the 1700s and say, oh, was that 1702 or was that 1799? Oh, it's the same thing. Well, that's a 97-year difference. At the time, it made a big difference. So I'm certainly not an advocate that we're in a great position as a country by any stretch, but to not say that the important conversations we're having, it's such an important step toward making things better. What's going on in Congress, the way just this week with the same-sex marriage bill, right? That is a huge change in our country. That is recent, very recent. And so there have been improvements all over the lot, and I think that it's important to give air to that, because otherwise you feel as though that you can't dig out of the quicksand. And that's when people walk into the nightclubs. It's the incels who feel like they have nowhere else to turn but to be killers. I want to give people the understanding that the way they feel and the way they are, it's getting better, and we're getting better.
David, you're a fan of cinema, and in the 2010s, we were given Kevin Costner's Draft Day. And in Draft Day, Kevin Costner, the GM of the Cleveland Browns, changed his entire draft strategy when players didn't show up to the quarterback's party.
Good transition.
And we had a real-life situation here. Not a prospect, though. Some would argue a bona fide potential Hall of Famer in Russell Wilson. Only half the team showed up to a birthday party thrown by Ciara. And I'm wondering, what can we read into this?
I just finished recording Nothing Personal, and I talked about this, so let me give you a quick answer to that. Zero. We didn't have one thing other than Jose's funeral that every teammate attended. You can't get them to do the same thing, period, unless it's in the collective bargaining agreement where they're forced to make an appearance, or it's in their contract and you put the same thing in every player's guaranteed portion of their contract that they have to go to this community event or that community event. Players have parties all the time. It's never fully attended by a team, and that's a team with 25 guys. A football team, what do they have, 55 guys or something?
53, I think, or is it
53?
58 now? Is it with the practice squad?
They're
Is it
not inviting
58?
the practice squad guys. That's a bad job out of them if that's the case.
It's absurd. It has nothing to do with whether they like Russell Wilson or don't like Russell Wilson. They don't like doing stuff, right? By definition, there's plenty of people who just don't want to be at a party, or they're not interested in the Hollywood part of what Ciara's life is and Russell Wilson's life is. It's a whole different story whether he's liked on the field by the offense and the defense. But I don't read into the argument they had on the sideline this past week. He had an argument with one of his defensive players. That's like a Tuesday. They just happen in the clubhouse, sometimes in the dugout, sometimes on the field. But don't read into it. What you should read into it is that the Broncos stink and that Hackett's over his head and that Russell Wilson should never have gotten that contract. But not going to a party? No big deal at all.
Russell Wilson just turned 34. He says he's going to play until he's 45, which at this point sounds
Play what?
Sounds
I
like
hope
a
so.
threat.
I hope so. It's a sickos committee every time the Broncos play at this point, so I'm enjoying that. We go from the 20 Teens Classic Draft Day to the contemporary, What are you reviewing for us this week, David? Every week, the host of Nothing Personal with David Samson joins us and gives us a review of either a television series or a major motion picture or documentary. What do you have for us this week?
Did you guys watch Pepsi, Where's My Jet?
I've wanted to get to that. It's three or four episodes, right, on Netflix?
Yeah, it's very quick. It's a one-nighter. I did not remember this at all. And the reason I'm bringing it up is I want to know whether I was living in a hole. I don't, and that was like my prime of watching TV and watching commercials because you couldn't fast forward through commercials and they were a big deal at that time. I don't remember, but apparently Pepsi, and I was thinking about the people we negotiated with for naming rights and all of the money that Pepsi spends. This is a documentary about an advertisement which said that if you get enough frequent flyer points with Pepsi, they call them Pepsi points, that you can get your own Harrier jet for 7 million points. And it's the story of a kid who raised enough money to get enough Pepsi points and wanted specific performance and sued for it. He wanted the Harrier jet. And Pepsi had to argue, hey, we were just kidding. We weren't really offering a Harrier jet. And it reminded me of as a kid when you did enough in school and you could, like, Girl Scout cookies or sell cookies. I don't know if any of you did this, but you could get different prizes if you sell enough things. Am I sounding familiar to anybody?
Yes.
Nobody?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
those bland chocolate bars.
Magazine subscriptions, yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, for
and
rapping.
so this guy, it's a documentary about a guy who got backing and spent $700,000 to buy Pepsi points, which they were willing to sell at 10 cents a point. You didn't have to buy Pepsi cans. You could just buy the points directly. It's like on your frequent flyer on your airline. You can buy miles if you so choose to get status, if you're into that sort of thing. So he gets the points. He then says to Pepsi in a letter, I'll take delivery of the jet. And Pepsi said, we don't have a jet. We're not giving you a jet. And it's a documentary about what happens. And
It's
I'm
a
not gonna
fighter
spoil
jet,
the
right?
end.
It's a fighter jet.
Yes.
It's not just a jet. It's a fighter jet. Pepsi did a commercial, and they were just fooling around. If you get millions and millions of points, we'll give you a fighter jet.
Which is, and the commercial saying that you can get a jet had a kid in it, pretending that the kid was taking the fighter jet to school like a kid would take a bike to school. And so I thought that it was all a joke. And it turns out the lawsuit's real. The entire story's real. The result is interesting, and it went all the way. Like, this case did not just die at an early level. These guys took it all the way. So it's well worth your time. It's called Pepsi, Where's My Jet? Which is the question he asked when he accrued enough points to win the mega prize.
Samson, we'll talk to you again next week. We will leave you with this because we know it'll make you happy.
Excuse me.
You all right?
Yep.
See you later, David.
See ya.
God, you are representing us, and I love you. USA! USA! USA!
Walker Zimmerman is a titan.
Oh,
Yes.
my God. Look at those eyes. I could get lost in those things.
Beautiful.
And the man bun, two-time MLS Defender of the Year. Before we get into the conversation about the U.S. advancing and he's in Qatar right now. Before we talk to him about soccer and winning and the United States, Stugotz is going to give us top 5 man buns. We want to see how Walker Zimmerman feels about the man bun list.
I'll tell you this, Walker Zimmerman has naming rights to this top 5 list. It is the Walker Zimmerman top 5 man buns of all time. How about that?
Congratulations,
Yes.
Walker. One of the many prizes you have won by making America proud. Number 5, Stugotz.
George Washington.
Okay, excellent.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yours is better. How about that?
Number
Founding
I
father.
agree.
Yeah.
Number 4.
Gareth Bale.
I also think mine is better.
Number 3.
Charlie Whitehurst. You don't know who he is, do you?
I can't even picture it. I can't even picture it.
Just picture Jesus with a man bun, dating Jewel.
Number 2.
That sounds kind of nice.
Yeah.
On a bearskin rug in front of a fireplace, not wearing much clothes. Number 2.
Patrick Rafter.
I don't know who that is.
A tennis player.
Raf.
Old
Raf.
tennis player. Number
great hair, bud.
Number one.
Kelly Olynyk.
I don't know who that is either.
This went well.
Kelly
Are you
Olynyk's-
guys sure that my naming rights are on this list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Walker
Yeah.
Zimmerman
Yes.
top 5 man.
I think he
Okay.
wants to
All right.
disassociate.
He doesn't want to.
He rejects
Yeah.
the list.
Because
All right.
he had a Canadian number one. Big mistake.
Sorry.
How scared were you, Walker, clearing the ball off the line at the end of the game after it squeaked past Matt Turner? All of us were terrified. Well, Chris Whittingham couldn't bend over for about 3 days because he was so scared. And the end of that game had a lot of people hyperventilating. Where were you on feeling pressure?
I was fine. I knew I was going to get there. I think more worried after I hit the ball that it wasn't going to hit Shaq in the back of the head. I wasn't worried about getting to the ball. It was more like after I hit, I'm like, oh gosh, that could hit him. But no, after it went out, I felt really good about our chances there.
In that moment, did you see the fear in Matt Turner's eyes? Because the still has been circulating on the internet. I haven't seen eyes that big in quite a
Honestly,
while.
yeah. Now that you mention it, I can remember seeing his face. A little bit of panic there.
What can you tell us about the scene afterward with you guys celebrating how festive that was?
It was great. I mean, we're definitely celebrating that win in the locker room. We FaceTimed Christian in from the hospital, made sure he was in on that. And we were all just pretty happy, but ultimately that's not our end goal. So I'm hoping we'll celebrate a little more after each and every round.
How's Christian's penis doing?
He's great.
Yeah.
He's doing well.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'm happy to hear that. We need him.
It's America's penis.
Yeah, yep.
It's America's penis. We need it doing well. Long live Captain America.
Do we know if he can play at 100% in that condition? I know he says he's going to play. He's kind of important for scoring purposes.
No, I'm sure he'll be good to go. He's been in the training room a lot, but he's feeling good. His vibes are high. I think he looks strong and healthy.
It's remarkable that he actually trotted back onto the pitch, because I think every man here at some point in their life has been hitting the junk and taken out and been incapacitated for a little bit. Have you ever been hitting the junk so hard that you needed to go to the hospital? Because that's what happened to Captain America. He was hospitalized because of how hard he was hit in his bathing suit area, and he's going to be ready to play on Saturday.
I've never had to go to the hospital for something like that, but I mean that just tells you how hard he must have gotten hit, because that was wild. Yeah. Putting his body on the line, I love it.
What do you regard as the best game you guys played of the 3 games? Was it England?
I would probably say England. I would. I think just given the nature of the game, the importance of the game, the quality of the competition, and then just the exciting style that we played with, I thought we had some really good chances and probably could have walked out of there with 3 points.
Walker, when you came into the game, there was an intent to shift to a back 5, and you guys were very clearly going to defend. Do you thrive in those moments? Because the rest of us were scared shitless. Yeah. Were you sort of like, I'm coming in for 18 minutes, and I'm going to head every single ball that comes out of this area, and this shit's going to be fun?
100%. That was exactly the mentality. Was, man, I see how hard these guys have been working for 80 minutes. I'm going to give everything I have for the last 18 and make sure I can try and bring in some composure, win some aerial duels, try and bring energy onto the field, and make sure at the very least we're walking out of here with a 1-0 win.
How long did that 9 minutes feel to you? Because to me, it felt like 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it felt pretty long. I think, honestly, when we kind of looked over and saw the 9 minutes, we're like, 9 minutes for what, But at the same time, that's kind of how this tournament's been going. A lot of stoppage time. We knew it would be a lot, but 9 was seemed a little excessive.
Has that been an adjustment? Because soccer players are kind of used to, all right, you kind of look at how the game's gone. Yeah, that's maybe 5 minutes. And at this tournament, 5 minutes becomes 9 very quickly. I know that that's only a difference of 4 minutes, but when you're sort of used to playing the game in one way, and then all of a sudden you get to this tournament and the rules are, well, we're counting every single stoppage. I heard on a broadcast they said that there are 3 people that are keeping track of stoppage time so they get it precisely right. Is that an adjustment?
I think from a physical standpoint, it is. I mean, you look at some of the games and, you're getting 20 minutes of stoppage time. And so you're basically playing a whole, period of extra time every game. So I think that the numbers are higher, the physical load is a little bit higher. So it's certainly going to have its impact as everyone continues to play, 105-minute games.
Were you surprised against Wales how quickly they were allowed to throw that ball in? I mean, to us watching on television, it didn't even look like it went out of touch.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, we all kind of stopped for a second because it was so clear that it was out by a good bit. But I mean, that's how it goes. Sometimes you get calls that go your way, sometimes you don't. That's kind of what makes the sport exciting. So, unfortunate little piece of luck for us there. But now that game's behind us, and focus on the next one.
What's the coolest part about the hotel you guys are staying at? I've read and heard that it is like the best hotel there, private beach, your own private areas. Like, what's the coolest thing going on there?
Oof. Yeah, it's been amazing. We definitely, can't complain about our digs right now. I would say, one of the funnest parts about it is some of the rooms have crazy balconies that kind of overlook the city and the water. And we do like a yoga session out there, a lot of us, and then we're just overlooking everything, just like up there in our sliders, just sweating like crazy. But just like looking over the entire city while on the balcony is pretty unique.
Who on the team is enjoying this experience the most? Like, is just taking it to a whole new level?
Oh my goodness. I would say DeAndre and Sean Johnson. They have been just the ultimate teammates. I know Sean hasn't gotten to play. DeAndre got a little bit in the first game, but they are just the ultimate teammates, making sure that, the vibes are right, the music is right. After the win, we were on the bus and DeAndre's on the speaker and he's playing High School Musical. He just knew the mood, what we needed, and we were soaring, we were flying, and it was a perfect song for the moment.
What makes you feel most foreign out there? What are the reminders that you're not at home?
Probably just the no alcohol with the environments. Like when you go to these games and, it's usually extremely rowdy in these types of situations and scenarios. And it is a little bit different. It's a little bit more tame in the stands and around the stadium itself than maybe other big tournaments. But, we did get one day, we got to go to the souk, which is the local shops, and just walking around. I had never been to the Middle East before, really. So it was just a cool different experience, seeing all the trinkets, the rugs, and just the market itself was a good cultural experience for us.
Have you felt any limits on your freedom?
No, not at all. I think if anything, it's felt extremely safe. We're obviously already in a bubble anyways. We have a lot of security around us and aren't really going outside the hotel too much anyways. But it's felt, I think the best part about this is everyone who comes feels super safe in their environment. And that's a big plus for this World Cup.
Do you find it as breathtaking as we do how corrupt FIFA is?
No comment.
It's a heady play.
When you guys are doing these gorgeous yoga sessions on this balcony, who's the most intense about the yoga?
It's definitely Sean. He's our leader. He's our yoga instructor. You've probably already heard his voice before, but it's just this very deep and relaxing, setting your intention for today's practice. And he gives the whole spiel. He knows the vocabulary of running a yoga session, that is for sure. So he's into it. He does an amazing job. Honestly, he should get a little sponsorship from some kind of app after this if we record one of them.
Are you tired of hearing about how young you guys are? Because everyone keeps pointing out that you're the youngest team in the tournament.
I don't think we're tired of it. I mean, it's just it's just a fact, and we're just accepting it. I don't think it means anything different to us. I think we know we have a lot of confidence and we believe a lot in ourselves. And, but I don't think we're tired of hearing it because it's just a fact. It's true.
The coolest person that you've heard from since advancing to the knockout stages. I know prior to the tournament, you heard from President Biden. That was pretty cool. Greg put him on the speaker. Has anybody reached out to you personally or to the team collectively since advancing?
Yeah, we have a little quote wall in our player lounge, which is another sick area, probably the other best part of the hotel. And so we have some celebs who have been sending some quotes in. Eric Thomas gave us a little private Zoom inspirational talk before the tournament. But yeah, we have, I'm trying to think, we got Mr. T came up today. He sent us a quote. Tom Brady sent us some stuff. Draymond Green. Drew Carey. We got some other celebs on there. So
I sent the
maybe if
quote. Did you
wanna
guys
send
see
an
it?
inspirational quote.
I did. I sent it. You didn't see it?
Might not have made the cut.
Mr. T, what did he have to say?
That's awesome.
Honestly, I don't know. That one just got written up today, so I haven't had the time to really look at it in depth. But it's probably just like no pain.
I pity Iran.
I pity the fool.
Walker, I'm a longtime soccer fan, day one. And so I am wondering if you, like me, are tired of all the people who are jumping on this bandwagon.
Oh, I don't think we care at all. I think the more the merrier.
right.
We want to inspire more fans, and I don't care if they're jumping on now or if they started before the tournament or 25 years ago. We're welcoming to all of our fans.
What's going to happen to the Netherlands?
What do you think's going to happen?
I'm asking him. I'm not asking
We're
you.
gonna win the game. We're gonna move on.
Yes, he
Look
guaranteed it.
Oh, wow. No, that was a declarative sentence.
It wasn't a guarantee. Would
it
you like?
sounded like
would
one.
you like
What's
to guarantee it?
declarative?
Because he just did declare it. He did declare that they're going to win. You're a big underdog.
That's fine, no problem. I think kind of the mentality of this group is we're confident in ourselves. Don't care what the odds makers are saying or what people outside are saying. We believe in ourselves and believe in this group, so we don't want it to end yet.
Who were your soccer idols growing up?
Man, probably. I mean, my oldest brother. I loved going to his games. What a unique. He ended up being a punter in college, but I tell you what, I'll never forget watching on the sideline. He's like 15 years old and he's scoring free kicks from behind half field because his leg was ridiculous, and he would just shoot, and it was so fun. He'd like take goal kicks, and I would just not even care about the game, just watch how far he could kick the ball. So that was fun. Other than that, I mean, I grew up not really like having a favorite player, favorite team, just kind of like watch random games. But I do remember, I think John Terry, his mentality was pretty special to watch. So that was a center back that I tried to copy his mentality.
No posters on the wall?
I had a couple in the room of actually some old school national team players. So, Josh Wolf, Kobe Jones, Brian McBride. And it's fun now, Landon Donovan, to now have met those players and have relationships with them. And it's crazy to think of how they inspired me growing up, and then to think that we can be doing the same for other kids is really cool. Because
of the youth that we're talking about, did you find early on or even recently that you're on the pitch sometimes with somebody and you're simply awed that you cannot believe that you're sharing a field with that person and you have to snap out of it because you're playing against that person?
Not really. I think in the moment you're just, so focused and not really caring too much about who you're going up against. Obviously we've gotten to play some big players, whether it's, Bale on Wales, Kerry Kane, whoever on England. And, we got Van Dijk has obviously been a special center back to look up to. So there are big players on every team. It's the World Cup, and, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but, you look at quarterfinals, you see a guy like Messi. I mean, the opportunities that we have to play against some of the best is really fun, but I don't think any of us are going into the game thinking, oh my gosh, we're playing against so-and-so, because we actually have a lot of really talented guys on our team too.
Do soccer players at your level dismiss NFL kickers thinking if I gave this a month of training, I could do it?
I think it's athletes in general. You always see something like, guys who love to golf, like, give me 3 years of private lessons. Like, I'll be out there. And I think any athlete's the same. Like, you believe so much in your specialization. I don't know that we could, go to the NFL level, but I think anyone on this team, especially with how young we are, would be like, oh, I could kick in college 100%.
No, you got to go. You've been so gracious with your time. Something to look forward to on Saturday. If you indeed make the starting 11, there is a matchup to look forward to on set pieces. You're as good as anyone in the air for the U.S. Virgil van Dijk is obviously a special center back. Can figure into the set pieces. Are you titillated by this potential matchup on these set pieces to go toe-to-toe with one of the best in the air?
Oh, I'm excited. I mean, that's definitely a part of my game that I think has made me and my career unique, is the ability to score off set pieces. And there's not one set piece in the game where I'm going up thinking I'm not going to score. So I know he probably has that same mentality, but I'm definitely going in thinking I'm going to not one home for us.
Do you have the better man bun of the two?
I would say so. I
You
mean,
dominate it.
I don't know.
You dominate his.
Try
Wasn't
looking
even in
at
that list, though.
He has
so-
naming rights.
Yeah,
I mean,
try looking at him straight in the eyes too. That might work.
Yes.
Those peepers,
Yeah.
man.
Just
Jesus.
hypnotized.
Yeah.
He'll be hypnotized. Walker, congratulations. Thank you. Looking forward to you guys as you guaranteed winning on Saturday and continuing on at this point to win the tournament. To win the tournament entire thing. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Stugotz just segued seamlessly from US Go States.
I did do that.
I am really enjoying Chris Cody having strong soccer opinions. He is now officially annoyed by Messi.
Well, this is nothing new. This is just I've had this take. I'm kind of been with not he's not a fraud. He's one of the best soccer players I've ever seen. He's annoying to watch play because of how arrogant he is.
Really?
He just
He's a humble guy
and I
in the
know,
debate.
and I know what he does. Like this is nothing against him as a player, but he does he does this thing where when the ball, he'll be offsides and he's just like walking because he knows it's just a vibe thing. Like I'm not saying anything he does is like hurting the team. It's just anytime a player there's a play that could have gone to him and a player does something else, you like see it on him. I just wouldn't want to be a teammate with that guy.
He's a scold.
And I know I say that as someone who's hoping he comes to Inter Miami. I have 2 season tickets. I'm just saying I'm projecting myself getting like
he's a
angry
look
with
at me,
him.
Lionel.
And I get it. He's been his whole life your God. So it's like I probably would act that way if I was told that my whole life. So it's hard for me to get that angry at him, but I just don't like the way he is towards his teammates. I feel his teammates stressing. There was a couple times in that game yesterday where he they ran into him. They tried to pass him the ball. And
You're getting off of him that his teammates, he's hitting them all the time with "I'm better than you. I'm better than you." The way that I walk, I'm a genius, and you guys are not serving my genius well enough.
I also think what Chris is saying is they feel some sort of pressure to make sure they get Messi the ball.
I can feel the weight in the game of
right.
right here, just get it to Messi. If I don't know what to do with it, I know I can't get in trouble if I give it to him, and I don't know.
Selfish.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, I think that goes to actually a point that is made in the Sid Cicero rant that we play here on the show, which is that he grew up in Barcelona where everyone knew the exact right thing to do all the time. He was surrounded by 10 other players that knew exactly how to play with him, and it was a flawless orchestration. And you can never do that with the national team, never mind that those players are worse. Right. And so, I think, that's a consideration, but I never got a lack of joy off of watching him play. I always got that the system never functioned. I never I identified his role within that. But yeah, I think for Argentina, he has never been as comfortable. And maybe that manifests itself physically, but I always see him as such a joy when he has the ball that it's hard for me to sort of see it as some sort of negative.
And I don't know if he's just like trying to keep energy. Like the constant, when he's not involved with the play, he's always just walking around. And you see other players, everyone always kind of keeps a jog. And it's just like, there's just this arrogance there of like, I'm Messi, so I will run when I need to, but right now I'm walking.
There are a couple of guys over time that I recall. Brady's one of them. Dan Marino is another that would get so frustrated with everyone else not being as great as they are.
Oh, Marino.
That their teammates would get the wrath of be better. I'm yelling at you now because I'm a scold because you're not better. Who else is on this list of athletes who annoy you because they're so great and they're wandering around reminding all of their teammates that they're not as great?
But when they're great, Dan, I don't mind them like annoying me. It's not annoying to me. It might be annoying to the teammates, but like Michael Jordan had an arrogance, but that was an earned arrogance. With Messi, it's not earned.
Oh, but
he hasn't won a World Cup.
He
has never won a World Cup. Come on.
See, you're doing that thing. You're running past me now. I'm not saying like he's great.
One thing.
He's great. But it's just, come on, be a better, like, just make your teammates feel like, just be better at, be a better teammate.
Mike, he's been making
believe what I'm
faces the
hearing.
entire time. The entire time.
He wants him in Inter Miami. He's not going to say anything bad about him.
I mean, to be able
Well
you would be
said.
lucky. I know there's all sorts of rumors out there. Inter Miami would be blessed and lucky.
But just
to have a
imagine how
player
he's
like
going to
Lionel
act
Messi.
at Inter Miami. If
You
he's
think-
acting this way now,
No, he's not going to be pissed
He
off at
is-
Robert Taylor. He's
my
not.
God.
Ariel Lassiter is going to be just fine.
DeAndre Yedlin, poor
No.
DeAndre Yedlin.
Gregory is not going to get a cold stare. No, man. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but compared to other players on the planet that are really
You're
good,
just saying it's worth it.
he doesn't register.
You're just saying it's worth it.
No, I'm saying he doesn't register. Like he pales in comparison to
allowed.
Ronaldo.
Watch Cristiano Ronaldo's body language.
Pales in
On
comparison.
Zlatan's body language.
Lionel Messi's body language compared to other greats it doesn't
Like
even register.
Zlatan's body language to his LA Galaxy teammates was the worst body language I've ever seen from an athlete in my life.
I think-
he actively hated them.
Dude, yeah, that's who I'm comparing him to. I think relatively speaking, Messi is subdued considering his greatness on the pitch.
This is on us then for building up these soccer
No.
players and just giving them carte blanche to do whatever they want.
Jessica is saying she's mouthing that she loves body language.
I love the body language conversation. I also love Stugotz's point. He's never won a World Cup. Get out of here.
Right.
Who do you think you are?
Right.
Look at me, Lionel.
You got to earn it. You got to earn that arrogance, and his is unearned. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
Exactly
You
right.
say
Same
that.
with Marino, for that matter. I mean,
If
what?
you're Ronaldo and you're a god to the world, you saunter and walk around, and you've been beautiful all your life on top of it. It's like Messi's at least been short, so there's a reason he might be humbled somewhere along the path.
All-time short king.
Ronaldo has been
Wow.
a beautiful statue his entire life. He carries himself everywhere as if he smells great. It's you've heard the saying, he walks around like his shit don't stink. He walks around like nothing
actually think
about
it
him has
doesn't.
ever smelled bad.
I actually think it doesn't.
Smells like potpourri.
Yeah. If you had to bet, does Cristiano Ronaldo's shit stink? I'd say no.
Huh.
I can
I
imagine.
think it smells like cool water.
I think I'm with you.
I feel like it's always the very clean people who have the stinkiest poops.
Really?
Yeah.
Put it
I
on
think,
That's a
the
good
poll.
shout.
I
Put it
think
on
he
the-
shits a clear cylinder.
Whittingham, put it
I
on
imagine the same exact thing about Pat Riley. I do.
put it on the
That's the weird
poll,
one,
Whittingham,
Stugotz.
at LeBatard
Yeah,
Show.
I
You
just
may
do.
shit a scented candle.
Do you imagine
Thank you.
that the most beautiful people have the stinkiest poop? If that soccer take annoyed you, I know Whittingham and Mike, this one is going to annoy you from Chris Cody. He watched yesterday, and his takeaway was poor Mexico.
That's kind of because one of my good friends is a Mexican supporter, and so I've kind of just. Do you guys do this? I find in the World Cup, I'm rooting for my friends' teams more.
I do.
In other
I do
sports,
too.
like regular
Yeah.
sports, I don't. But for this, I like, it's not in our group, doesn't really affect us. So I was like, yeah, I'm rooting for Mexico for my friend.
Especially because there are people that are probably way more passionate and they
Yeah.
from soccer mad countries. I have a Brazilian friend
Yeah.
who goes absolutely apoplectic during every single Brazil game. And yeah,
I get it. It's the US's
it would
biggest
be
enemy.
way more devastating to you than it would be to me if you guys went out in the group stage or in the knockout rounds.
I
But
felt
not
bad,
Mexico.
I felt bad for my Ecuadorian friend Jose.
Yeah.
I did not feel bad for my
I'm with
Mexican
you.
friend Chase.
I'm with you. Mexico is our rival, so I get why I shouldn't be feeling this way. But I did because of how Mexico needed so much yesterday to get to where they had a chance to advance,
yeah.
and they got there and to learn that 7 tiebreakers down, they had more yellow
They
cards.
stink. They're awful.
But that is just dude.
Chris-
If we
That's
got
bad.
eliminated
That's
that
bad.
way,
That's bad.
everything is tied.
How many rules would Stugotz change if we got eliminated from the World Cup on yellow cards?
Do you realize
he would
that?
end the
All of
sport.
them.
He would change
Yes.
all the sports.
Dude, did you digest that yesterday? Mexico didn't make it through.
I only watched
because
the
of-
U.S. I mean,
Mexico
that's it.
didn't make it through because of the 5th tiebreaker.
Really?
no, no,
Well, they gave up a goal late
Well, yeah,
to
before
Saudi
that, though.
Arabia,
Yeah,
but
before-
we were heading towards a scenario.
Wait, so had they
where-
won 2-0,
So
no
had
tiebreakers?
they won 2-0 and Argentina won 2-0,
Right.
they were level on points, goal difference, goals scored, and their head-to-head was a 0-0 draw.
Wow.
And so the second to last
Yellow
tiebreaker
cards.
was
Yellow
FIFA
cards.
Fair Play, which is yellow and red cards.
Right.
And if they were level on yellow cards, they literally, I'm not kidding, would have drawn lots. Which I asked Mike yesterday on our Morally Abhorrent show, what is the drawing of lots? I don't know what lots are.
I guess that it's you take one player from each team and they have to draw Ronnie Lott from memory, and the drawing
good
that
guess.
most accurately
Yeah,
represents
But
Ronnie Lott.
I googled it. Apparently, it's like just drawing names out of a bowl. is what the drawing of
sounds
lots
biblical.
would appear to be. And yeah, like
But I'm certain when they put that in there, they thought to themselves, "We'll never arrive at this time.
We'll never arrive
Right,
at this."
yes.
And yet we were there. We were 2 Poland yellow cards away from drawing lots. I was here in the studio and I was like one by one counting the yellow cards that have happened in the group stage. It was 7-4 at one point. Poland picked up a 5th yellow card in the tournament, and they had a player who could have potentially picked up a 2nd yellow, and that would have had them level on yellow cards. It would have been amazing.
So that's why I felt bad for Mexico.
I'm glad that you mentioned this because I had a sneaking suspicion that Dan and Sue didn't watch those 2 games at the same time yesterday. Or probably didn't watch it at all because it'd be all you were talking about. Because it was the witching hour on steroids. You have live group tables on both. The games going simultaneously to keep the integrity of the results. And like Woody was saying, there was an instance where Poland got a yellow card. And if that player got a 2nd yellow, they would have been level on fair play, and we would have gone to drawing Ronnie Lott from memory. It was bonkers. Mexico going all out, bombing forward for these goals. There was a goal that was called offside. It was intensely dramatic. And if you were watching it and you had a deep understanding of all the scenarios at play, it might have been enough to make Stugotz stop being sarcastic about the sport.
It was great.
What?
It was great. It was great. And I was trying to watch both, flipping back. I don't have the 2 TV sets, so I'm hitting last just constantly. I had such a bad day with my lasting. I missed every goal. Every time I was on one game, and the announcer would be like, "Oh, Mexico just scored." And I go back to that game, and it's like, "Oh, Argentina just scored." I didn't see a single goal yesterday. It was still the most insane thing ever. The final 10 minutes of that was crazy.
Whittingham, put on the poll the following 2 questions, please. Do you know what the drawing of lots is?
Mike explained it. I mean,
I thought it was drawing lots, not Ronnie Lots, but just drawing as much as you can. Drawing lots, like everybody gets together and just starts drawing.
Lots,
Yes.
maybe.
By the way, Stu, I was listening to a soccer podcast last night, and
Yep.
it was from the UK, and they were coming up with ideas for how we avoid this. They came up with the idea of before each game, have a penalty shootout, and the outcome of that penalty shootout will be the tiebreaker at the end of the group stage.
Yeah.
I like that.
I've heard that several times.
That's awesome,
It's not
yes.
the first time we've come down to hardcore tiebreakers, and the penalty going to pens has been right there for them. I don't necessarily think before the game, although I guess to move the logistics to have just one. I would like one big at a soundstage dramatic showdown.
I want that.
They could have done that actually
They could
because
have done that today.
all the teams that need to do PKs. Is that what you're saying, Mike?
Yeah, just
Yes.
and Qatar's so small.
That'd be
Like
great.
they could have just
Yes.
gone to whatever game at Doha and had it.
honestly
as a
they could have
pregame.
done it after the games. Can you imagine like there's a bus that's taking the Mexican team to the stadium where Poland played Argentina or and all of a sudden
That'd be cool.
On shows up and they just walk onto the field, do their warm-ups, and they do a penalty shootout as the tiebreaker.
Whittingham, also put on the poll, please. Do you feel bad for Mike's Ecuadorian friend, Jose?
I kind of felt bad for Tunisia yesterday because they won against France, but they still got knocked out because Australia won, and that was also happening at the same time.
The Danes ruined the moment for Tunisia.
This is the part in the World Cup where I start getting really sad because
Not enough games.
we're getting out of the
Already?
group stages. For me, the group stages, I understand the drama, the knockout stage cannot be replicated, but I love just the sheer volume of the opportunity to bet on these games.
Third
And-
match day is going to be my favorite moving forward. This was fun. The third match days
it's
are
over.
fun.
It's over though.
No, I know that. I'm just saying though.
No. I mean, like
Those are I think those.
So this format is ending.
Yeah.
Because the next World Cup
There's
is going to
more
be
games.
right. Well, the next World Cup is 48 teams. And right
Oh,
now,
they're letting
but
everyone
but
in.
right now,
That's
they're-
ridiculous.
but right now
I
they're
don't like
slated.
this.
They're slated to do 16 groups of 3
It's awful.
instead of 12 groups of 4.
They still haven't
and so
decided.
you won't have simultaneous
two
kick
get out?
Yeah, so the top 2 in
Okay.
each group, and we have a 32 round knockout stage.
don't know how I feel about this.
Not that you need more evidence that FIFA is corrupt, but they basically just said, how do we get China and India money into this World Cup? Make it so that they make the tournament. We'll figure out what that means for group play afterwards. They still haven't proposed a formal plan for how an expanded World Cup works.
But Mike, I want to explore why you're so sad because you have 2 more days of group stage. So you have 2 more. You have 2 action-packed days, and then you get what you've wanted forever.
What's the best
You
part
get
of
the United States in an elimination
No,
game.
that's gonna be
Right.
fantastic. But what's the best part of March Madness?
I mean, the first and second round. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
No,
No,
right.
I feel the
it's
same
4
way.
games a day. Like after Friday, we only get 2 games a day.
I understand. I feel the same way Championship Sunday NFL because we're dwindling down to the final 3 games. But Mike still has 2 more days of opening round, first and second round. You still have it.
It's like a cruise.
Yeah.
If you're on a 7-day cruise, the first 3 days, oh man, are those fun.
Yeah.
Once you're like over the hump,
You start thinking
it's
a
like,
little bit.
oh man,
yeah.
there's only 2 days left. I've already had. It's just like that's what it is. It's closer to being over than it was.
Yeah, I know it's morally abhorrent, and we try to remind everybody that thousands of migrant workers died putting up these stadiums just for our enjoyment, and it's a horrible, horrible thing. That being said, can't take our eyes off of it, and the only positive for moving this morally abhorrent tournament to the winter is that we're that much closer to the next one, because I love this thing. It is. I've felt this way for quite some time, but it's just my favorite thing in sports. The World Cup tournament is just fantastic.
You're getting one in less than a year now.
Well, yeah, I'm getting the Women's World Cup coming up, and that's another exciting part about having this thing pushed back to the winter. The U.S. hosting, though, you're too young. You weren't even alive when the U.S. hosted,
No,
right?
I'm super young, yeah.
You're
That's
super young.
Los Angeles in 1990.
Well, it was all over the United States. The opening ceremony
94.
in Chicago. I remember, I look back to 1994, and that was my introduction to the game, because this was something that exists on closed circuit television. Just you could watch Liga MX in the United States. I
think there were games in Orlando too, weren't there?
Yeah, I had my true introduction to the sport was a '94 World Cup, the little dog mascot and everything, and it just totally consuming the nation. And I'm really excited about my daughter's age when that World Cup comes along. It's a perfect age to really get her invested in the sport. I'm going to be traveling all over North America. I want to go to the Mexican games. I want to go to the games in Canada. It is such a joy that we get to have that in our lifetime. I look back so fondly, and I'm so excited for 3.5 years from now to actually host it. Thank God the women play, because I've noticed in missing a World Cup cycle, I've gotten so much fatter than the last time that the U.S. was in the World Cup that none of my shit fits me anymore. And because there was like a World Cup stretch in between that I didn't buy gear for, it is bad, dude. I'm just squeezing myself.
You're wearing stuff from 8 years ago?
Yeah, no, I was looking in a mirror, and I just had the bottom of my stomach coming out of one of the shirts.
You were Philip Seymour Hoffman in Along Came or in Boogie
Just
Nights.
Bottom of my stomach hanging out the bottom of the shirt. And I was like, geez, 8 years ago, I could wear this in public. I can see my belly button. I'm like, why does my belly button look 3 times the size that it is in reality?
And why did I
It's
get
just
so
a
many shirts in
saucer.
white?
Right.
It's like the white
Stop
shirts are
making white
such a
shirts.
bad idea.
Hey, sports. No more white shirts.
Ever.
Wait,
Ever.
why no white shirts?
No more white
shirts.
No more white shirts.
No more white shirts.
Ever.
And no one looks
pit
good in white.
stains?
The sports fans don't look good in white shirts. I can get wing sauce on it. There's all sorts of bad things. Why does my belly button look that much bigger? It looks like a little espresso dish.
Whittingham, put it on the poll, please. Can Americans name 48 countries? And I think I would be okay. I don't know if the rest of you would be okay with this, but if you're going to get to the absurdity of this team advances because they drew lots, I think if that's the tiebreaker, the one above it before drawing lots should be, okay, who has more money as a country? Just
GDP.
Just
GDP.
Oh,
is
man.
in the standings.
That
GDP.
would like the U.S. having a half point in the group. It'd be amazing.
What about a Twitter poll?
Not bad. But you're saying the United States starts with a half-point lead? Is that what you're... Yes,
yeah, I mean,
right.
if GDP is a tiebreaker.
Yeah, we win.
We sound myopic.
Stugotz, have you seen, and I thought it was a spoof. It's got to be a spoof. It can't be a real thing, but it's a real thing.
What happened?
What is the movie? I'm not going to say what is it about because I think the name is going to be self-explanatory, but I just don't know how it gets made, and I don't know who will watch it other than perhaps you. The movie Cocaine Bear.
I'm there.
That can't be real.
No, it's real.
This sounds like a movie I would pitch as a joke.
Did you see who's directing it? Elizabeth Banks. It's going to be good. There's great
The
actors
trailer's
in this movie.
ridiculous.
Ray Liotta's in it. It's his last film. Kerry Russell's in it. It looks like it's going to be amazing.
How can it be amazing?
I don't want PETA coming after me, but wouldn't we just the bear seems clearly wouldn't we just euthanize the bear? I mean,
Well, it's based off of a true story. This actually happened once. I mean, not exactly the way it's going to happen.
I saw this preview. Some of this stuff could have happened.
What happened once?
A bear did cocaine.
Did cocaine,
Yeah.
yes, correct.
Yeah. And what happens, Dan.
Well,
I mean,
a bear, like an animal. We're not talking about like the '85 Bears, because the '80s Super Bowl, that was. They might have all been doing it then, but no, like an actual bear, like a grizzly bear.
But
Right.
Sam Hurd did 15 years for it.
A bear did not do cocaine. It might have eaten cocaine. It did not snort cocaine. And if it ate cocaine,
You don't think it got the straw? That'd be adorable.
rolled up a $1 bill.
Rolled up a $1 bill, little Twinsky.
a mirror.
So are you saying the bear didn't do cocaine because it didn't do cocaine the way that you think the bear should have done the cocaine? I think it still counts.
I'm asking you more questions about what is the true story here and what is the movie. The movie, I mean, after you get past the premise of you give me the name Cocaine Bear and I'm like, haha, funny. How do we make 2 hours out of
My
that?
favorite part of the trailer is when the bear takes its paw and just starts rubbing the front of its teeth.
Dan, the headline here says drug-fueled animal goes on murderous rampage in real-life thriller. I am so there for that.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure like what part of this you don't get. Dan LeBatard, it's a bear that does cocaine. Oh, how do we fill 2 hours with a bear doing cocaine? Is that even a question that needs to be answered?
I got 6 hours at least, just off the
To
top
Dan's
of my head.
point, is there going to be a lot of growth in this character, you think?
Yeah, there's a plot line.
Well, I feel like eventually
midway through, it decides now's the time that I'm going to
sequel?
type out this email.
That bear goes to rehab.
This is the time that I reply all to this email right now.
the bear gets on a flight to Miami.
Yeah, the bear decides to open up a sports bar with all his friends.
Hits rock bottom. All the other bears have an intervention, and they're like, "Listen, Lou, you have to go to rehab."
Bro, what's your Venmo?
So the Cocaine Bear is based on, this is from Yahoo, a chain of events that took place in September 1985 when a convicted drug smuggler named Andrew Thornton offloaded a duffel bag of cocaine over northern Georgia. A 175-pound black bear ingested the cocaine and subsequently overdosed, and it was discovered 3 months later next to about 40 plastic containers of cocaine. Thornton also died during an attempt to abandon the overloaded plane when his parachute was rendered faulty. Today, the bear is on display at the Kentucky at the Kentucky Fun Mall in Lexington, Kentucky. So the bear is apparently taxidermied and on display somewhere, which is what happens when you're a bear that does cocaine.
You think Ron McGill would still tell us not to run if it was a cocaine-fueled bear? Sorry.
Oh, Jesus. God almighty.
Sorry, I did cocaine.
$5.
Hey,
Oh,
Coke
come
Bear.
on. Do you think Ron would do that, though,
It's
now
the
that I've
worst-
sucked it up?
It's the worst one you've ever done. What are you
It was a
commoning
full
about?
sentence of phlegm. Let's move on.
Jessica, you made
That was bad, dude.
Second
Why?
worst. It wasn't on with
That was-
Lewis on this. But
Yeah,
second,
no, that's
that
the
might
worst
be second
one.
worst.
That's the worst one. It's been a while. It's been a minute for the phlegm. I've contained it, but that was bad. I'm going to give you $10, Dan, okay?
Jessica, I have a question for you.
You're welcome.
Because you've made me feel like an idiot about this, and maybe I am an idiot about this. Maybe because I've lived in Miami all my life, I should understand.
You're just not that impressed by a Coke Bear because you've been in Miami your whole life?
it's
Is
not
what you're
that.
saying?
Bear.
The part that you made fun of me on is the difference between snorting cocaine and eating it. But I would assume if given the choice, if they had the same effects, most people would choose to eat cocaine instead of snort it because I'm never choosing to put anything up my nose. I'm assuming that there's some sort of reason or difference. The brain,
Edible cocaine?
the brain, some reason.
I've heard that if you snort it works faster.
From a friend.
Yep.
Mhm.
I don't know the physiological logistics of a bear eating cocaine.
It's like eating a marijuana. It takes like 2 hours for it to kick in, as opposed to right away, Dano. You know,
You
Right-
smoke weed, you feel it right away. You eat weed, you don't feel
Well,
it for
I mean,
like 3 hours.
You can smoke cocaine too, but then we're getting into crack.
Right.
So
It's
I've
not a
heard.
crack bear. It's a Coke bear.
Yeah, it's a Coke bear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the logistics. This is a question for Ron McGill, I think. Is
He
the
probably
correct
That's what I was
answer.
trying to say earlier.
Yeah.
He probably the bear ate the
That's
coke,
true.
and then
Nice.
like 2 hours later was like, "Whoa, I ate something."
You guys want to party?
Ooh, we should watch Hardwell. I can get us into chain smokers.
I should buy a boat.
Yeah,
I think-
boat's a great idea. Let's get a boat. Let's make a sports bar on a boat. Holy shit. Write this down.
Are you of the belief
Anyone have honey?
that a lot of people will watch this? That a lot of people will watch this movie. That
I'm
this-
renting out a theater for it.
Yep.
I am. The last time I did that was for Top Gun Maverick, and I think that this is worthy.
You're wondering if people will watch a movie titled Cocaine Bear?
There was a movie with Alec Baldwin and Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah,
and a
but
bear.
in that movie, the only thing
but
on
the bear
cocaine was
wasn't on
Alec
coke,
Baldwin.
Stugotz, that was impressive, man.
Thank you.
I mean, I and then we have both sounds here. Mike's got both here. There's no way this one's as bad as the original. I'm with Lewis on this. I haven't heard it replayed yet,
Okay.
but I heard it in the moment. The I'm with Lewis on this is
I think it was, Chris. I think that
Wow.
what I just heard, it was longer, first of all.
It was a sentence, an entire sentence.
Okay,
Yes.
let's see here, because we have a reigning first ballot Hall of Fame champion that we remember from years ago. That is Stugotz at what we thought was maximum disgusting, but over the intervening years, we've been proven wrong.
Thank you.
Stugotz has gotten more and more disgusting. He is blaming it on yesterday's rant.
Thank you.
that was hilarious right after.
Full of compliments.
When Stugotz goes into this is why it happened mode, and it's never the heaters.
No.
I did a rant yesterday. That's it. I think that's what it did.
It was the rant, yep. That
Okay.
and the 30-minute conversation I had with Whittingham at 8 o'clock last night. Other than that, I'm fine. It's not the heaters. It's not the weed. It's nothing. I mean, it's the rant.
Here is the original Hall of Famer, and we will find out. We will also put it on the Twitter poll to see which of these is phlegmier. Is it the original first ballot Hall of Famer that just disgusted Jessica? She has never heard it before. I'm with Lewis on this one.
I'm with Lewis on this.
It sounds like he is drowning in a bathtub filled with mucus.
I took my headsets off. I can't listen to it.
I'm with Lewis on this. I'm with Lewis on this. I'm with Lewis on this. I'm with Lewis on this.
Not going to listen.
I don't know if what just happened can possibly be worse or more disgusting than that. It was longer. It was a longer phrase, a longer sentence. Stugotz doesn't feel shame very often. He certainly doesn't put in double a fine by volunteer very often. Clearly, he was not at his most professional broadcaster when this happened.
Ron McGill would still tell us not to run. It was a cocaine-fueled bear. Sorry.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh my god!
It's worse. It's worse.
I've identified the problem. It's that little hiccup where I start laughing a little bit. I mean, that's
Wait,
where it came
wait.
up there.
Holy
Yeah.
god, man!
The original I'm with Lewis on this one
I
was
gotta
him
listen now.
just dropping slowly into a bathtub full of phlegm.
I'm with Lewis on this.
This one,
I'm drowning.
no, this one is worse because it's him going face first through an ocean of phlegm.
Ron McGill would still tell us not to run. It was a cocaine-fueled bear. Sorry.
Oh, Jesus.
The deepness of that voice.
It was a cocaine-fueled bear. Sorry.
Oh, Jesus.
It's like it's being
He becomes a
doctored.
different person.
It's
Yeah.
lower.
It was a cocaine-fueled bear.
His identity is being hidden on 60 Minutes.
But Mike,
It was
you
a
can
cocaine-fueled bear.
you can identify it, right? It's where I started laughing at myself, correct?
It was a
Stugotz,
cocaine-fueled bear.
Oh, Jesus.
if you're going to use the word identify, because you rarely do you hear Stugotz defensive, but he's getting in here and he wants people away from this. He keeps getting in here and he's not allowing us the funny of this. But when you use identify, Whittingham, you got it exactly right. I want you to imagine an arms dealer on 60 Minutes whose face has been silhouetted, but he's clearly Stugotz, but they don't want him to sound anything like Stugotz. This is what that would sound like.
It was a cocaine-fueled bear. It was a cocaine-fueled bear.
I feel like this clip might be better just because of what he's actually
Yes.
saying as the phlegm comes out.
Perfect.
Agreed.
Cocaine-fueled bear. I don't know how you beat that.
Who was
Cocaine-fueled
Lewis?
bears.
Was it Richard Lewis?
I don't know.
I'm with Lewis on this.
Who cares?
Yes, Richard Lewis.
I'm with Lewis on this.
Jessica, you are so right. This moment in time captured for posterity. We are not going to be wondering 20 years from now, what were we talking about when this happened to
It was a
Stugotz?
cocaine-fueled bear.
If we went with a random a random word generator, words that I'd want that to happen, this is pretty high up.
It was a cocaine-fueled bear.
It reads like it sounds like a Mad Lib sentence. Cocaine fueled bear.
Cocaine-fueled bear.
I'm going to argue that there haven't been words strung together in our 18 years together that would be funnier to drown in phlegm than these.
Cocaine-fueled bears.
You should put that in the trailer for the movie.
Cocaine-fueled bears.
Critics are saying.
Cocaine-fueled bears.
Mike, before you play that again, let's rewind in time for a second. And I want an honest answer from you guys on this. If I were to ask you, I erased the last 5 minutes of time by Neuralizer, and I tell you, is this Stugotz?
Cocaine-fueled bears.
You'd say no, right? You'd say that does not sound like Stugotz. That's someone else.
It was a cocaine-fueled bears.
No, it sounds like the call you get when someone's being held ransom and they're modulating their voice. Yeah.
It was a cocaine-fueled bears. I have your son.
Who abducted my child?
It was a cocaine-fueled bears.
In there, I do believe, is him making it plural because he was self-conscious. Now he's made it multiple bears.
And you're telling me you don't think people are going to watch this movie?
Stugotz, what happened the other day where you saw people arguing? Was it at a restaurant? Was it at dinner? Was it at your house? Where was this?
Oh, no, it was at a restaurant. It was me that was doing the arguing. Over a bowl of soup. I'm fine sharing food with people. I am. But for you, so I ordered soup, Dan, at a restaurant. My dad doesn't order the soup. My wife doesn't order the soup. They ask the waiter, hey, 2 extra spoons with that. And I'm all for sharing food, but I draw the line at soup. And here's why I draw the line at soup. I don't want you, especially now, pandemic stuff, germs, the flu, okay? You don't eat soup like you eat anything else, okay? When you put a spoon into a bowl of soup, you slurp that spoon. That entire spoon is going in your mouth. It's not a piece of steak on the end of a fork. You have to get in there, you got to get dirty, and then you're taking your dirty spoon and sticking it back in my soup. And I said, hey, do me a favor. If you want soup, order soup. Don't order a spoon. Order soup, okay? Because I'm not down with sharing soup. I don't want to share soup with anybody.
I've never heard of people sharing soup in a restaurant. I know many, many people who simply do not share their food. They don't like sharing their food. They want to eat their own food. And I think you could look at an astrological chart and find that Tauruses are most likely to not want to share.
Why are you staring at me?
Much.
I am a Taurus. No, but I'm the opposite of that. I clean everyone's plates when we go out to dinner. I finish everyone else's food off their plate.
You do.
And my boyfriend knows to order something that I like so that I can eat half of his and all of mine.
Yeah, no, if you get a porterhouse steak, you leave a slice of that steak on your plate. I am taking it. I am eating it, okay? But I'm just talking about soup. I'm all for sharing food. I don't mind sharing foods.
I've shared soup.
But you understand what I'm saying. That entire spoon's going in your mouth and you're slurping it.
But Stugotz, a fairly common thing in desserts is to serve like a tray of flan and everyone gets their soup or their spoon to sort of have at the flan.
Right.
That goes in your mouth and then goes back into the flan.
Yeah, but it's not a slurping motion. There's not like...
But ultimately, your objection is it going in someone's mouth and coming back out.
Yeah,
I'm surprised to hear that you're scared of the germs of your own family members.
I am.
You spend time around them. They would theoretically get you sick even if you didn't share food.
I'm worried for them. It's not about me. I'm worried about my dad. I'm worried about my mom. And listen, what makes you assume that I want to share my soup with you? That to me, that's rude. Okay. Hey, can I get a bowl of clam chowder? Sure. What would you like? A spoon to eat his clam chowder. Get the hell out of here, Dad.
Okay, but now you're saying that you ordered clam chowder, which is a very rich bowl of soup.
Yeah, delicious.
I don't want my own bowl of clam chowder. I want a couple bites of yours. That being said, I'm not sharing soup with my dad. I'm sharing soup with only my boyfriend, maybe a good girlfriend. I'm not sharing soup with a family member. It's just someone that I wouldn't mind making out with.
Did you really try and turn this into a .org situation where you were not wanting to share your soup because you were worried about the health of your father and your mother? Is
his mother
that
that
what
passed.
you just did?
My mom's not here anymore.
Well, but I
That's
think
the ultimate fine.
But I think you did it.
You did it.
You did it. You said you were worried about getting your mom sick.
Oh, I did. I owe $50.
That's not the fine.
Sorry, Mom.
But you've overfined, and that is
You
$1.
get $50 back for that one.
I meant my wife. I'm sorry.
But you tried to make it about an act of selfishness. This is maximum Stugotz.
Yeah.
He just disguised a total act of selfishness, of literally, by definition, not wanting to share as something he did because he's worried about the health of his parents, his mother, who he confused with his wife.
He just wants all the soup. This isn't about germs. You
No.
just want all the clam chowder to yourself.
I
and
just
also
don't
you-
want someone slurping on a spoon and then sticking it back into my bowl of soup. That's it. Because there's only one way to eat soup. You got to slurp it.
But I'm with Stugotz on this one. I don't want to share soup with anybody. That soup. It's the things that you eat like that are soup and cereal. I wouldn't want to share cereal with somebody,
Exactly.
or I guess
Oatmeal.
I mean, I'm stunned that anyone. I'm actually stunned that his family wanted to do this
With me.
With him. I know. I've seen some of the things that get put in that mouth.
They're going to find cigarette butts in the bottom of the clam chowder. I think it depends on the soup, though. What if it's like a French onion with a very thick crust and you can eat it with a fork? Are you going to let your dad eat a little bit of the crust of your French onion soup?
100%. It's a great example. 100%. Because you get a little on the fork, you eat the end of the fork, you have a little more cheese. I'm fine with that. It's when you go all in on the soup, okay? And plus, no one asked me, and that bothered me for some reason. Like, hey, bowl of soup. Hey, 2 spoons. Get out of here. Ask me first.
So you brought up oatmeal, but what about ice cream? Ice cream is a spoon. You have to slurp it. If someone brings me a bowl of ice cream at dinner, I'm sharing that with the whole table.
Right, but like what he brought up earlier with the flan and desserts and stuff, you get the big, brownie sundae. You can split it right on the plate, like right there. So you can like kind of corner it off. You have your piece.
But someone's going in with their spoon into the scoop of ice cream in the middle to then get some. There's definitely the commingling of saliva that you don't want.
How about ask for a bowl and a spoon, and I'll pour some of my soup into your bowl, and you can eat it that way. How's that sound?
That's fair.
That sounds sloppier, though. It sounds like you're spilling soup all over the table.
Right,
Maybe
exactly.
The restaurant
That
doesn't
would be the
like
concern.
that.
Good point. Yes.
You see, like sometimes, like you get like a really big salad for the table, and then like you try and fork off a little bit into a smaller side plate that maybe was meant for the bread for the table, and that is sort of a perfect splitting situation because you're getting a decent size, and I can put it onto your plate, and then I can just worry about my big bowl of salad that I have left.
Who are these people that want soup so badly? Like if I get soup, like I guess to start a meal, I'm like, okay, but if I don't, I'm not like missing it like I want someone
Oh, but
else's.
clam chowder and French onion are exception there, aren't they? They are such decadent soups.
Exactly. That's why I think the type of soup matters. Now, if it's just a really thin soup, like a brothy soup, just order your own soup.
But-
It's like a $6 bowl of soup.
But Jessica, I do not think the type of soup matters. I think that Stugotz is right here in that I'm having trouble coming up with a food that I'd like to share less than soup. The distinction he is making on ice cream and flan, I think, is an important one, which is that fork that's been deeply in your mouth is now something that's just rummaging around in the swirl of a soup that's not separated, that you cannot cut pieces off of, that you're not taking a fragment of. I'm legitimately having trouble thinking of a food of any kind that I would like to share less than a clam chowder. It's not even just a soup, it's that soup. It's a soup that I'm imagining going into the mouth of Stugotz's 80-year-old father.
And he's messy too. Like there's dentures falling out. He's dribbling all over himself. Yeah, it's messy soup. It's a messy soup for a 99-year-old. I don't like that. It's not for me. This is also why my edamame trick that I used to do on my sister was so evil, because I would suck the edamame beans out of the edamame pod, and then she would put it in her mouth.
No.
And then she would realize that I already did it, and she would get really mad at me because of how disgusting it was. It's the same concept. You're putting something in your mouth and then someone else is putting it in their mouth, and it's kind of gross.
From day one that you walk through the door, you have declared that you are a truly gross eater in every possible respect. From eating a steak without utensils to sucking edamame pods and putting them back to eating half your boyfriend's food because that's the expectation of his meal. Like, everything about the way that you eat is foul.
But is she a disgusting eater or just a vigorous
Just a hungry girl.
eater who loves to eat? Now, the edamame thing is, though, you understand why your sister is mad at that.
That's why I did it, because it was very cruel, very disgusting, and it made her very mad.
I have done that by mistake, and if I knew someone was doing that purposefully, I believe no jury in the land would convict me for severing their head at the table with my fork.
I'm going to do it to you sometime, Dan.